One of these days we'll go live in a different way. One of these days we'll go
ready.
live.
I was so ready to hit the button on you. Nope. I was going to do it.
You were going to hit the button?
I was going to
I don't know.
You hit buttons that I'm supposed to press all the time.
All the time. I didn't, I don't know.
I'm excited about today. So I wanted to hit the button early.
I feel like with Jessie and Aisha, it's going to be pandemonium. That's kind of what I'm predicting. It could be not. They could be just very quiet and reserved. They seem quiet and reserved. That's what I got.
Theater people are usually quiet and reserved.
Yeah. And theater people talking to business people. Now that's...
I know. We're the boring ones.
I don't know.
The insurance seminar people.
Backpack.
Well, hi, Chloe.
Jessie Hooker-Bailey and Aisha Jackson are here. Carrie booked this, and I think it's a really cool thing. Hey, Dad. It's really cool just because the opportunity to talk, we don't get to talk to people, stars of stage and screen. We don't get to talk to, we talk to a lot of weird people here, though, don't we? We talk to rock stars. We talk to former Japanese fashion models.
Varied and interesting people.
We talk to, weird. They're weird. You can't be in theater and not be weird.
Well, a little, I guess, because I'm a drama geek too. But I'll tell you, so I was on Twitter and I saw Jessie Hooker-Bailey has a Twitter. We're not promoting it because it's not our favorite place to be, but she was talking about casting on Broadway and how people will say, oh, the cast of Waitress is so diverse. But when you really dig down, you see that casting directors are putting people of color in kind of stereotypical roles and not the lead roles. And so there's really not as much diversity as it might at first pass appear. And I thought that's not something I've thought about. I go to Broadway shows when I'm in New York, but it's not something I'm thinking about the way that I obviously would have to if I was an industry professional. And there's a lot of work to be done. So I thought, we need to talk to some Broadway professionals and get to the bottom of this.
And then Aisha Jackson, you said, was the first person of color to play Anna from Frozen. Yes. So that's an exciting thing. And,
so exciting. Exciting.
It is probably the only reason I could ever want to sing a Frozen song is just in her honor today.
Oh, please don't. Please don't.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna be John Travolta and wreck her name. Is it Idina Menzel? She says every time she goes somewhere, she apologizes and says thank you at the same time for creating that music.
Well, funny story I have about a Frozen song is I went to the Space Center in Alabama with my kids one time, and for some reason there was like a event going on, and they had Elsa, Princess Elsa, singing, and she sang that song, and I was like, oh, thank God it's over. And then the kids are like, again, and she's like, you want me to sing it again? And you can see it on her face, like she did not want to sing it again, and she didn't want to, and they were like, sure. And she's like, okay. She did the whole thing again, and I was like, God bless you. Actors don't get enough credit for the stuff they have to deal with.
Anyway. Oh, you can say that a million times. Why don't we get this? Why don't we get this start? Yes, I was not a theater kid, by the way, because I can't remember lines. I'm a pure improv guy. I have nothing with lines. I would be the guy like, to be, and that'd be it. So,
well, you do you.
I do rap. That's all I got.
No, let's not do that either. Let's bring them out. Let's bring Jessie and Aisha out. Please.
Go. You hit it. I'm not touching the buttons.
So, hello.
Hi.
Hello. Do you want to take a vote? Take a vote or something on Chris singing? Because I know.
Look, the reason you do rap at karaoke is because it has the most words. I learned that from Debbie Gibson in the 90s. She said, I pick whatever song at karaoke has the most words. That's the only thing she chooses on.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, get it.
Nah,
I'm a fan of karaoke, so.
Oh, you know? You don't do it to sound good. You do it to be ridiculous.
I don't like karaoke.
I love it.
Neither of you theater. Wait.
No,
Aisha does and Jessie. Okay.
I don't like singing. I love singing, but I really love it when I'm being paid. I don't like the idea of like, let's all sit around and sing together. That's just not my style of thing. But
I like the Joker.
He has the best time.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
I feel like in these two sentences, we just got the absolute difference between Jessie and Aisha.
You do.
I really think we do, because Aisha's like, what? A chance to perform? Where?
Oh, I do karaoke like all the time. I love singing. So it's not even like I just goof off. We do whatever the hell we want. And I don't judge. Some people are like, I don't want to go to karaoke with you because you know how to sing. And I'm like, no. Everyone come sing. I don't care if you sing off key, on key, whatever you do. Let's just have fun.
Yeah. And I'm like a planner. Like, I'm like, I need to be rehearsed. I need to have, that's just
karaoke. It doesn't matter. You can sound whatever.
John says once you get paid for something, it's hard to go back to doing it for free. Apparently not for Aisha.
Wow.
It's an outlet. It's cool.
So let's talk about Broadway and finding your way to the theater as a career. I mean, I know, like, obviously there's not enough representation on stage. So what inspired you to go for that career?
For me, I grew up loving to sing. And so that's kind of how I got into theater in general. I learned about local theater. So I started that. I was in all the high school plays, ended up going to college for musical theater. I got my BFA at Shenandoah. And I just, from like the age 10 or 11, I knew I loved performing and I was like serious about it. I was like, I need to do everything I can to do this. As soon as I found out you could get paid. No, but truly that I could do that as a job. I was like, oh, I saw my first Broadway show was Cats. I can't be in Cats, me, Jessie, but I was so inspired by it. Wow, people are on stage doing the thing they love to do. And I want to be able to do that. So that's kind of the short of my story.
Cats is the one that like never made sense to me. So I had dreams of being a singer as a kid too, but I was like,
I know.
Huh. No.
I went to the Cats movie on a first date. The Cats movie on a first date.
Oh, the movie that like just came out.
The movie.
How was
Now, all I kept thinking in every single scene was, Idris, why? And then a little more time would go by and I'd be like, Jason Derulo, what are you doing? And like every single person who came on, I was just like, whoa. And the only person who said anything like that, like made sense to me, was that Taylor Swift said, look, I didn't do it for any of you. I wanted to work with Andrew Lloyd Wright. I worked with Andrew Lloyd. I'm done. I got it done. I got my check.
Weber.
You all can say what you want to say about the movie.
Weber.
Or Weber.
You can
whatever.
correct Chris
That guy.
anytime you have to.
I don't care. That's how much I don't like Cats. So I love that you liked it. But that was first date. Last date. Oh. I already got my first yellow card. Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Aisha, what's your story? Because I don't think I know. I know.
Well, my whole family sings. My father's a pastor, so we all kind of grew up singing in church together, which is another reason why I like to do karaoke, because I'm singing together with people. But yeah, I grew up doing that, and then my brother went to a performing arts high school, and they were doing a production of Once on This Island, and he came home and was like, "We need someone to be like the little girl, the little T Moon." And I was like, oh, okay, great. I didn't know what it was, but it was an opportunity to perform with my siblings. And so I went in and I auditioned and I got it. And then I went to the same performing arts high school that my brothers went to. And so it was beautiful. And because it was a predominantly Black performing arts program, I always felt represented. So when I went out on stage, I saw people that were creating and that were directing and that were music directing and dancing and leading the show that all looked like me, that were lighting the show and designing the show. So to me, I always felt like, oh, this is a beautiful place of representation, of camaraderie, a place where I get to do what I love. And in the 10th grade, I was doing a production of like Aida, and I was the understudy and I got to go on for her. And when I went on and I was leading the show, I felt very comfortable, very at home, very peaceful. And I've always wanted to find something to do to spread inspiration and joy using my gifts. So that was kind of that outlet. And I was like, oh, I really I like this feeling. Let's go ahead and pursue it. Went to college for it and then moved out to New York and started auditioning.
So unlike Jessie, you weren't like, okay, let's see, a half an hour of singing. That is.
I was like billing people at 11. I love knowing that I knew some of those pieces, Aisha, but for me, I didn't have people that looked like me doing theater. I just and I didn't think about it. It honestly, it wasn't something that I was like looking to people, but it was when I did see Aida was my second Broadway show and I saw Heather Headley play the lead. That was like the click of like, oh, wow. I don't only have to be on stage, but I could be leading these shows. Someone that looks like me is leading this show. But that's funny. That show was a moment for me too, of like,
So Jessie, you went to Shenandoah. So what was that like, studying music with people who were learning composing and other kinds of stuff? I mean, was there representation on campus? Like, what was it like, the experience?
No representation on campus. It was mainly probably the most Black people in general that I was around when I went to school at Shenandoah in Virginia, but not many in the program. It was still very few. When I graduated high school, and I'm from Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, my high school class, there wasn't many of us, less than 10 Black people in my graduating class. And so college was a little bit bigger, but still in my program, not many people. So it's interesting to bring it up. I haven't really thought about that I think in a lot of my life, I haven't really been around many people that look like me. Obviously, I'm biracial. My mom's white. My dad's Black. I have Black siblings. I also have white siblings. So in a way, everything that's happening right now in the world has been like such a shift for me, because I've kind of grown up in this utopia. Everybody loves everybody, right? You know, and then you get into the real world and you're like, this isn't how it is at all. So I think that's kind of been my theater experience too, to be honest, that when I started hitting the professional world and saw like, oh, I'm not getting as many opportunities as my white friends and coworkers. And I used to definitely watch my white coworkers and go, oh, well, it's because they're better than me and I just need to take more class. I need to do this. And it's been recently that I've realized I don't think that's everything. That's all of the reasons why, because I'm working with these people side by side, but so-and-so gets to be the lead in this. There must be no one seeing me as the lead in this. And that doesn't have to do with my talent.
What's it like when you actually get to play one of those roles? Like Aisha, you were the first person of color to portray Princess Anna in the production of Frozen.
On Broadway, yes.
Like?
There was a woman of color. There was a Black woman, Dominique Patton, who played Anna in the parks. But yes, I was the first African-American woman to play the role of Anna on Broadway, and it was amazing. It was beautiful, first of all, because it was my first principal. So it's my first leading role, and that's something that has been on my bucket list to check off. And so that was a great moment of pride for me, just to say, wow, I did this. And it was equally motivating to see the reaction of young women of color after they saw me step into the role. Them telling their mom, like, mommy, she looks like me, or I can be a princess because she's a princess, just from seeing someone of color walk out on stage and embody this role that they love and admire so fiercely. It was beautiful. And it kind of reminded me, oh, it's not really about me. It's about like the work that I'm doing. It's about what God wants to do through me, to be able to inspire these young girls, to let them know, like, you can do this too. And you love Anna, come and be Anna. And I think it's just important for women of color, men of color, everyone to see themselves winning and succeeding. So I think that Anna was a beautiful moment of that. And she's such a positive and goofy character. She kind of encourages you to be yourself, be the awkward person who spits out all the words before thinking about it, and love, and like go on this journey of love. So I thought that was a beautiful opportunity to represent and honor people of color who love the role as well, and show them, like, you can be Anna too. It's a fictional character.
You know, one of the things that I was thinking about when I knew you were coming on was that the first time I saw any kind of experience of people having a backlash to that sort of experience was in cosplay. So in cosplay, you know, everybody dresses up as, you know, very superheroes and all that. And so women of color are allowed to be like Storm. And there's like, you know, 5 other, well, now that there's Black Panther, there's at least 3 other, you know, women of color you can be, right? But it's like,
characters, why can't we embody these too? Just because on screen they weren't written for us. Is it a racially specific character? Does the plot revolve around her skin color? If it doesn't, then like we can embody these characters too. And that's the thing. These characters are written with white people in mind and not always with people of color in mind.
Right. And that, so, but it got really weird because this girl got thrashed for playing a character named Starfire from Teen Titans, who's an alien. She's not represented by any American human race at all. She's a freaking space creature.
Right.
She could be all of the colors. So when they cast Titans, the TV show, I don't know if they did it on purpose. I pray to Buddha that did. But they made Starfire a woman of color in the series. And she is amazing. But anyway, notwithstanding,
people need to see it.
Yeah.
I think it's about representation. I remember Aisha, we would talk about it all the time. Some of the backlash in the comments you would get, people are so tied down to the first vision that they saw of Anna, and constantly we'd be talking and you'd be like, Elsa shoots ice out of her hands.
And Olaf is a talking snowman, but Anna can't be black.
Anna can't be black. That's what you're worried about?
Yeah, so it's like we can suspend our disbelief so far, but then race, and then they're like, oh, let me halt here. And it's like, come on, just like come see the show. Like if I can't play the role, or if I like F it up, then go ahead, judge, go for it. But like when you're coming in and you're literally just judging a book by its cover, you're literally looking at my skin color and you're not allowing me to go on this journey, or why can't I dream or imagine in that same way?
Just like her. Yeah.
Yeah. Like no, give people a chance and then, go from there. But it was also nice to have people come in and say that they felt like, oh, wow, why is Anna a person of color? But they left feeling a different way. And that, to me, that transformation that I had a hand in was just as beautiful as someone who would come in accepting like me in the role. So it was also nice to have those moments where people were like, wow, I shouldn't have judged it like that. And I'm really happy that I did see you in it. And you've really opened up my mind to some different ideas and conversations. And now I'm speaking to myself like, why did you even feel like that?
Yeah.
So those were beautiful moments that were rewarding on the other end of it.
I think
So
people
Jessie,
don't realize they have expectations until they're violated. And then they're like, whoa, what? And then I think you're forced to examine why they have those expectations.
Yeah.
It's important.
Jessie, you didn't have that same experience.
Yeah. Well, what's funny about Aisha and my relationship is the track that I took over for on Broadway in Waitress was she originated. So it's kind of cool. And before that, I made my Broadway debut in Beautiful, and she was also a swing in Beautiful. So I've just kind of been following in Aisha's footsteps here. So that's why I was like, oh my God, we have to do this together. But yeah, so with Waitress, it's, a story where anyone can play anything. And I don't think that they always took it to that degree, right? We're talking about, it's great that I understudied Dawn. I understudied one of the waitresses. And the story isn't race specific, so anyone can understudy and play these characters, not just understudy them. And I think the trick bag, and I guess the tweet that got your attention was I was sharing from another page that kind of put it together, not just for Waitress, but for Wicked, a show that's about someone being
painted green.
But a bunch of these shows that are on Broadway right now, Dear Evan Hansen, that are just, they're being told as white stories, and we could put anybody in these characters. And though I love Waitress, I'm grateful for the opportunities. It's, again, no jab at the people that, put me in there, but we need to talk about how these stories are being told and originated. So yeah, I got to play Dawn, and it was super rewarding. I got to work with some great people. But yeah, even in the moment, I wasn't the first Black Dawn. Kayla Davion, who is in Tina Turner right now, well, before the pandemic, she was the first one, and then I took her place after Aisha, Kayla, then me. And so I got to play Dawn, but it was the first time when Jordan Sparks was our Jenna, and Natasha Yvette Williams was our Becky. All three waitresses were Black women, and it was awesome. But the show was open for 3 years, and that's the first time that happened. And we were celebrating it, right? We celebrate it because it's representation, but there was a moment of like, why is this such a big deal?
Why do we have to celebrate? Yeah, it's like, why is it like normal? Why we need to normalize people of color leading the show? And it also doesn't need to be like, make me the standby or the understudy. Like, if you think I'm appropriate for the job, take the risk and go ahead. And it's not a risk. And that's the thing too. We have to shift our mind of like, it's not a risk. If I am capable of playing the part and I just so happen to be a person of color, like, you should still give me the part. You shouldn't use my race against me just because you don't think it will sell. Or you think, oh, let's start it off with a white woman or man, make sure it's a success. And then like the second year replacements or third year replacements, maybe we'll put a person of color in there.
Yeah. Or when a show is closing, that's another habit that Broadway gets in. They're like, let's throw a person of color in there. And then people go,
now at the end, it's not so edgy.
But then people of color are looked on as a replacement, an understudy, or, stunt casting.
Yeah.
No, just allow us to occupy these roles just as you would allow our white counterparts to. If we deserve the part, we can do it.
Right.
Go ahead and
beyond capable. And that's what I'm I'm not afraid to talk about it. I know, and this is the time we're in right now, right? Like we're getting these platforms and these opportunities to speak on it. And I'm grateful because we've been quiet and okay for so long. It's like, to make everybody else comfortable, we should just be grateful for where we're at. Like that's some of the backlash I got from that tweet. Like people that love Waitress. I'm not saying I don't love it, but it's okay to love something and call it out and be like, there's issues here. And not just with Waitress, but with Broadway and all the shows you're seeing, there are issues where we're not being seen. And I don't sit back and be grateful because I've understudied a role.
No, and there's real ugliness. So I was reading, Aisha, about one of your castmates, their poster being defaced outside the theater.
Oh, yeah.
And it had never occurred to me that someone would do that. And then it turns out it happened twice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it didn't happen to any of the other lovely people that were on the wall.
The blindingly white people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a question, and it's just a I don't know anything about your business question. And Jessie, you said it a bunch of different times. Oh, this person first, and then I came, and then this person came, and I came, and you all talked about replacements. I don't know any of this. So is it like, do you have to like fill in a bunch of times before they think to call you first, or like, how does any of that work? Like, do you have to do your time, I guess, is what I'm asking.
You're doing 8 shows a week or something, you'd said, Aisha, right? And so somebody's going to get sick sometimes. So like you have to have.
Yes.
How does Jessie get first line versus, replacement line? How does that work?
I think Aisha, you might be able to say, I think you earn your stripes, right? Sometimes it's like I made my Broadway debut swinging. So I was off stage and I was covering. And now I'm kind of in the ensemble understudy. That's kind of like my next gig. I'd like to stand by next. Of course I want to lead a show, but there's also experience, right? And that's another thing we could look at as race. Like, but then there are some people that graduate from college and go right to the lead role. So
I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to it. It's like everyone's journey is so different. People always ask me like, what would you tell young artists and things like that? And I'm like, don't compare your journey to anyone else's, because there's no like 1, 2, 3, you got it. It just doesn't work like that. Some people will pursue Broadway and not make their Broadway debut until like their 10th year of auditioning. Yeah. And meanwhile, you have a young woman or young lady who pops fresh out of college and goes straight to a show. Yeah. So like, it's different. But as far as like replacing and things like that, so when a show opens, that's the original Broadway cast. And those are the people, like you audition for the show, you do a callback, they choose the cast, you come in, you rehearse it, and you are the opening night cast. Now, as the show goes on, some people book other shows. So like if someone else, like I did, Beautiful was my Broadway debut, and the young woman who was in the show, she booked another show. So then the person who was the swing, which the swing is an offstage cover that covers the ensemble members. As the swing, I covered 6 of the female roles. And so the woman who was leaving, they bumped the swing up into her position because she was someone that they thought fit the part. She was already in the cast, and they gave that to her. Sometimes they can audition and then they hire someone else to replace that. And then I came in and replaced the swing. So it's a replacement is just someone who either the contract of that person has expired and they're leaving, or they're not getting renewed, or someone is just leaving for a new job or something like that. And so then you come in and you replace. So people, and a lot of people don't know that, but that's like how you keep the show going.
Yeah, the show stays up for years.
The show stays open for years. And sometimes there's one person that is doing that whole track for all 4 years. And sometimes they go out and they do a leave of absence to go work on another project. And so they bring in a temporary replacement. And then when that person comes back, that person leaves. Or, it's just, there's so many, you got to keep the show running. So whenever someone needs to leave, you replace that person. And
so it depends on where you fit. And I've kind of fit in the place of like, I'll come in and do this. But yeah, it just depends on what's going on and who leaves what show when. And
And then both mentioned Beautiful a couple times, and I was like, I don't know what you guys are saying. So I had to go look at it because I'm looking, and I was thinking, what I was thinking of is Precious. Every time you kept saying Beautiful, I was like Precious. And I was like, I don't know what role you all played, but I know what role you didn't play. So
Beautiful, the Carole King musical.
Stop it. But listen,
Carole King musical. Yeah.
Look at this picture. I was looking at this picture. I'm like, white person, white person, white person, white person, white person, white person, white person. Half of a person of color. So that's kind of the point. That's one of the things we're talking about today is look at all those white people.
And I will say, in defense of Beautiful, it is a story about Carole King's life.
Right.
Of course.
It goes in step with that. But yes, you are making a very valid point. The people of color in that show were mostly in the ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that there's hidden bias when people will say, well, my artistic vision is telling me that this character should look a certain way or something, you know, and
Yeah,
it's really hard to like argue with your artistic vision, but it's like, your artistic vision's like super white oriented.
I'm really hoping that, and Aisha and I have talked about, like, the producers, that's who we need to be talking to, are the people that have the money, that control what stories are being told. Most of them are white. All of, like we could say in the Broadway world, they are all white. And in their minds, when they think of a family, they're thinking of their own families, and those families are white. So when they see us, I mean, some of these people, they can't see past the fact that, like, we were slaves 400 years. Do you know what I mean? That they go, oh, well, they could cover a role, you know, like, oh, they could do that. And they'll be happy doing that because they're getting an opportunity. And that's where the shift has to be, is we need to have these conversations with these producers and go, you know, we're capable of doing so much more than what you put on us. And we just need new stories to be told, right? So like with Beautiful, it's Carole King's story. Carole King was white. Carole King should look like how Carole King looks. There's no hate in that at all. That makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. In these stories that have, it's not about race at all.
Right, it's not racially specific.
Why can't it look different?
Right. Devin asked a while back what you want to play. Like, what do you want to play? And what are your influences?
Dream role.
Go ahead, Aisha.
My dream role hasn't been created yet. It's for someone to write a role specifically for me.
Yeah, I want to originate something.
Andrew Lloyd Webber does that. Chris, you're looking like that is like this impossible thing. He does that.
I mean, everyone does that. Any composer, lyricist, any writer, any director.
Oh, I just wanted to say Andrew Lloyd Webber.
No, but they're constantly thinking of new shows and new visions to bring forward. And I think as we begin to be equally represented behind the scenes, the artistic vision that is coming forward will be from someone who thinks of more than one race, or someone who is talking about different cultures or a different storyline, or plots that could be racially specific or not. It's just a human being that can be embodied by any human being. But as we expand, our producers, our casting directors, our composer lyricists, our book writers, our choreographers, our music directors, to be people of color, then those stories that we bring forward will not just be diverse in the way of like, oh, we have a few people in the ensemble that are diverse, or we have people who cover who are diverse sometimes, or we have one principal out of our 7 or 8 principals that are a person of color. Like, it'll truly start to represent our world as we make sure behind the scenes our world and all the races and ethnicities and cultures are represented. Then we'll tell some stories that are more representative and more inclusive.
So I'm a superhero and comic book nerd, and so I already wrecked Andrew Lloyd Webber, so I have no cred here. I did see Phantom of the Opera 4 times, the Vegas showing being my favorite one, because I got to go backstage with some of the people, and it was really crazy to kind of look at the things, like see how it's engineered in a place like Vegas, because it's ridiculous there. Everything there is ridiculous. But comic book nerd story. So I published a book in 2015 where I said at the very introduction, I said, right now the Guardians of the Galaxy is finishing production and it's going to come to screen, and no one believes in this movie because it stars like a talking tree and a raccoon and nobody that anybody knows. And Zoe Saldana's in it, but she's green because she can't be a person of color. And
she's literally a person of color.
Right.
She's green, which makes no sense because her dad's blue. But so she, she's biracial. Maybe her mom was yellow. But the point I was making was that it ended up making plenty of money. Stop it! It ended up making plenty of money, and then what happened was they come back to the same well with Black Panther. They're like, look, we made a movie with a talking tree and a raccoon, and we made tons of money. Shut up, that Black people can't be a draw. Everybody wants to see this superhero movie, and they were saying it's not going to work. $1.46 billion.
One of the biggest grossing. Yep. And their budget for that was minuscule compared to the budget for other.
Exactly, because they didn't want anybody to lose any money on this movie. Because what happened? I'll tell you what happened in my local movie.
Black people don't draw. That's like a new thing that I'm hearing, that it feels made up, because Black people will come to theater and will come to movies if they see themselves, and not just
I have to tell you the story,
right?
Because so I live in Massachusetts, a fairly secretly racist state, you know, where everybody hides their racism, so you don't know.
Low key.
So yeah, low key. So I go to this movie theater and it is packed, and you can clearly tell all the Marvel superhero fans with our neck beards and our, you know, body odor and our gooey glasses that you can't see through and all that. And a billion black people that I've never seen ever. I don't even know where they're from. I feel like they've all just shown up off of another area because I've never seen them all. They're full in the movie, and they're in the movie like they're at church. Aisha would know. You know, they're churched up in this movie, and we're all collectively having the best time of our life. This is a great movie. It's a fun movie. There's so much good laughter and stuff in it. So the movie ends, and if you don't know anything about Marvel superhero movies, there are after credit scenes and after credit scenes. The movie ends, and about 30% of the theater starts to stand up. 70% of the theater goes, "Sit down! You're missing it. There's something cool coming." And everybody sits, and it was it was beautiful. And that's that they thought that wouldn't draw. So this is what I can bring to this story about theater is that you see you on a screen or a stage, you draw.
Thank you. Thank you. And when we walk around day to day and we're not equally represented in our workplaces, on screen, next time you watch the TV, look at the commercials and count how many people of color you see in these different commercials. Just, you know, and when it's like you don't see yourself that much around you, then I'm not going to pay a ticket to go and sit in the theater and also not see myself or see myself as a stereotypical role most of the time, you know? So it's like, as we expand these stories and give the opportunities, people are going to come and see these shows. Like Motown went, and like you would see busloads of people coming, people of color, white people, like everyone coming. And so it's like, there is a draw. So don't say, oh, we can't put this leading woman of color, or we can't do this Black musical or this Black story or this Asian American story or this Latinx story, because those people don't come to the theater. You start doing shows about them, they'll show up more.
Exactly.
First of all, we are here. Let's not even say that we're non-existent.
Right.
We're here. We wouldn't, I mean, how would I know what theater is if I wasn't present, or my parents or my family wasn't involved actively in theater, or someone that I knew? So we're here, we're prevalent, like tell our stories so that you can see even more of us come out. And
although not many people in your program, Jessie, not many. So how do we get those feeder programs to get more diversity in theater? Because I feel like casting is like a trailing indicator. It's like there's a lot that has to happen before you even get the chance to audition. Right. So how do you start?
That's been something I've been talking with people at Shenandoah, people at my high school too, right? Like what we're learning in our schools, our curriculum, it all stems from a certain place. But yeah, in colleges, you need to make it more affordable for even these students to audition. It's expensive to even audition and to travel around and audition for these programs. And we need heads of programs, musical theater programs around the country to think about, they want more people of color to be in their programs. And those people of color want those opportunities, but they can't afford it. I could hardly afford it. I'm still paying it off. So you know what I mean? But it's something that's a real thing. Same with casting and internships. We want more Black people and people of color behind the table making these decisions, but they can't afford these $100 a month internships in New York City. No one can afford that. And if you can, a lot of the times, like you're not someone coming from the inner city that really wants the opportunity, you know?
Jessie brought this up, and there's a little more to dig into there. And you said it before, and this story is going so fast. This train is moving, so we have to pull back my thoughts. I've been just sitting here filled with thoughts. You were saying the fact that, you know, they want the experience, but they're not giving the experience. You know what I mean? So when we say systemic racism, we're talking about this about police right now. It's really easy to see with police. They demonstrate it daily on video for us now. Every day we get to watch that. But you don't see it in things like theater and acting. You could feel it. You could suspect it. But if you don't put enough people of color into places, they can't have the experience. You go, well, I only see like 3 credits here. Yeah. Well, you only gave me 3 credits. And you can't take it for yourself. You can't say, well, never mind. I'm here to do the Scottish play. You know, like you can't, like, you know, you can't do it.
If you think about it, and not without naming names, but there are specific people in my life who we have the same, you could say, caliber of talent that are white and graduated, and we did the same non-equity, not a part of the union tour, and they were already playing leads because those leads were available to them. I'm still doing, it almost makes me want to cry. because it's so small when I think about Broadway and like what's happening in the world, but it's such a sign and a symbol of what's happening in the world. But I'm still doing the ensemble understudy tracks. And I've been out of college the same amount of time as some of my white counterparts. And they're learning how to be leads. They're learning as they go, right? And I don't think Black people and people of color are given even the opportunities to learn like that. You know, we're put in these auditions and circumstances and they're going, well, so-and-so has 10 credits and Jessie only has 2. Well, do we think about the fact that Jessie hasn't even had the roles available for her to play? You know, that's a real thing that I'm just coming to terms with. Because like I said, I for so long have been looking around going, well, it's because they're better than me and I'll take more class and I'll do more lessons.
Mm.
Well, they're doing those too. I've been doing them the same amount of time as them. So what's the difference here?
So you're working 10 times harder. He went away. You're working 10 times harder. I think he's trying to screen share and he left by accident.
Yeah.
We have a question. Fred Faulkner IV, which might be the whitest name I've heard, Fred, asked this question. Is there a producer, writer, or equivalent of Tyler Perry in the theater industry? Is there someone paving the way in the same way? I'm teasing. I love Fred. But go ahead.
There are different producers and writers of color that are in our field. They do exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's just our argument is we're not given as many opportunities as our white counterparts, and so there are a handful, and but are they given the same opportunities
to experience? Right, it's the same thing if they're put on the table and the white producer who's done Hello Dolly and all of the like big hits, right? And then there's someone like Douglas Lyons and someone like writers that we know that are so talented that want the opportunity and they don't always get it because they don't have the experience. It's like I'm hopeful that these talks, right, and this time will open people's eyes to give people that maybe don't have the experience the opportunity, because it's not like they can't do it. We're ready and we're waiting.
Yeah,
well,
we have roles and stories and music ready to go, but it's not always given, you know, it's not.
Yeah.
Jessie mentioned the fact about the prices and all that sort of a thing. And please in no way think I'm like, hey, white man to the rescue. But I was looking at what Shia LaBeouf was doing, which by the way is the weirdest ass sentence you could ever say out loud. But Shia LaBeouf, finally turned a corner or something. Like I think he got his insanity out of himself when he did Honey Boy. And because that's like his self, like if you don't know it, it's his like very autobiographical writing that he had to do, sort of court appointed in rehab writing. But he's got the RC Slauson Rec Theater where it's super inner city, super like, low. I think there's no fee to be in it and all that. But in doing so, he's bringing this out to the street a little more and to places where people aren't. And when I say street performances, that wasn't code. Yeah. But he, I wanted to bring it up not because go Shia LaBeouf. I wanted to go that there are so fewer ways to produce what you want to produce. You're both pinnacle players now, where you're used to a large budget performance where there's a lot of cast and costume and people and services and staff, and it's like putting on a movie every day. But that jump is so different than a lot of our professional jumps. That jump from in the park theater, like Aisha, I'm sure that had to be kind of like, just like the church stuff. Church is theater, right? So it's got to be, there's this thing that gets you to that other level. Why is there no bridge, or how come there can't be a bridge, or can you envision a bridge?
I think a bridge for our journey is like when we do regional theater and when we also take the opportunity to produce some of our own things. I think a lot of the times we're waiting for people to give us permission or waiting for people to open the door and be like, come, we want you at this level. And sometimes we just kind of have to make it our own. Start with writing a show with your friends and do a reading of the show in your living room, and then take that to see if you can take it to a festival. And then once it happens in a festival, see if you can take it to a regional theater. And then you can off Broadway and then Broadway. So I think those bridges are one, creating opportunities for yourself within your circle and networking and seeing who you can connect with to make this thing tangible, but also, community theater, regional theater, Broadway, off Broadway, educational theater, tours, non-equity and equity. So like there are different steps to go to build your experience and to, to get there, but also within those different avenues, there's still systemic racism and different things you're going to have to come up against and fight up against to still get that training or get that experience or exposure and different things like that. But, everyone, like I said, it's not a 1, 2, 3 journey here. Like, there are people of color who have had the opportunity to lead, who have had the opportunity to, it's not everyone has the same track record. So it's going to be different, and you just kind of have to make it yours and make it what you want it to be.
Yeah.
But I'm listening to you, Jessie, thinking, I'm not as good. I need to work harder. I need to do more. And so by the end of this, you've studied, 100 hours more, worked 100 times harder, and you're still not where somebody else is that graduated the same time as you. That's got to be frustrating.
Yeah.
I can't believe you're so positive is what I'm saying. I feel like I'd be like some grizzled, super pissed off.
I mean, some people are, but
it's that. And I think it's what Aisha said too. And people were responding to that meme in the same way. Well, so-and-so was the understudy for this, and so-and-so was this. Like, there were Black performers, there were people of color performing. It's not taking away of any of that stuff. And because if it was, Aisha and I wouldn't be able to be where we are. We know that. But we're asking for equity.
We're asking for equity. We're asking for it to be equal representation.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy. Like, that's not crazy. And we haven't even talked about, like, I was speaking to an old castmate, and she was like, well, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to begin. And I was like, well, start with having these conversations within your circles and start to, like, open your eyes when you see racism rear its head in a rehearsal space or in a work environment. Speak up about it, and don't leave that person on their own to fight it. Because, if I see my white counterpart dealing with something, I'm like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? That's the same way we need to deal with racism in the workplace. And, like, when you think about, and I told her, I was like, we just want to be treated equally. It's not about wanting more. It's like, have you ever had to worry about your tights being the same color as your skin, or the foundation that you get from your makeup supervisor that is a white woman who may or may not know as much about people of color? Like, is it the right shade? Or, like, my wig prep, it takes longer for me to prep my hair depending on how I'm wearing it. I have versatile hair. It could be curly, it could be straight, it could be whatever. So if I'm coming in on a certain day, it might take me a little bit longer to do my prep. Do you know how to talk to me about that? We don't have people behind the scenes either that we're speaking to that know, like, so then it's also uncomfortable for us in work sometimes just to go and show up and be like, so actually with my wig prep, I need this. Or, like, why do we have to think about like, you're thinking of our white counterparts, and I'm not saying, I'm not generalizing it, because this is not the case all the time, but like, those are little things that we have to think about that hopefully we won't have to think about.
No, but this is important. So I came to this thinking about the diversity or lack thereof on stage. It's stagecraft. It's the whole thing.
Everywhere. It's the crew, it's stage management, it's general management, it's company management, it's our directors, our choreographers, our assistant and associate directors and choreographers. It's our composer, lyricists. It's literally everyone.
Yeah. I think how I keep hope is that we're talking about it now. Because half the stuff I'm saying now is stuff that I'm just realizing myself. So it is, like, emotional. And I can't say that during this pandemic, there haven't been days that I'm like, what am I doing this for? But I think what keeps me hopeful is that I have a community that we're all kind of going through this together. And we want change, and that these conversations are happening, right? Like, that you saw a tweet and you were like, hey, we need to talk about this. That your audience, Chris, are people that aren't theater people that will look at it when Broadway opens up, we'll look at it differently and maybe hold that accountable. We'll maybe sponsor a student to want to go to a college program or audition for, like, just people thinking outside the box from their regular day-to-day.
Thinking it all.
Yeah. And the thing is, these conversations have been happening for years. And, people often of color who bring up these discrepancies are then, like, blacklisted or looked upon as, like, you're being extra, or for women of color, especially Black women, you're being the angry Black woman, or
angry Black woman, or fussy.
Yeah, and our white counterparts can say the exact same thing in the exact same tone and manner and be, oh, what is it? What do you need? Okay, let's see how we can change this. And then we're looked at as, like, you're being a diva, or you have an anger problem, or you have an issue. So it's like these conversations have been going on for so long. And I think God,
hold that up, Jessie.
That have had these conversations and have been willing to speak out and speak up and have the confidence. And I'm happy that we're all continuing to listen now. Like we're in this moment where we're listening more and more actionable steps can take place. So I just hope that we keep to and actually take this time to create these more equitable and more inclusive spaces.
People say they're thinking, but they also want to know what they can do, like how they can support financially, how they can facilitate change.
I think, I mean, I don't mean to sound brass, but like do the research, look up these programs that are doing the work and how you can financially support them. If there is a certain industry or a certain lane that you're most inspired by or motivated by, like look up those different things. You know, right now we have so much going on with police injustice and police brutality, and Breonna Taylor and a grassroots law project. You know, that's something that you can support. And then in the theater world, look up these different organizations. Broadway Advocacy Coalition is a beautiful space that was founded to work for social justice within our industry. And they're even working with curriculums for different colleges and things like that. And so like they're trying to help to decolonize the syllabi and like reconstruct curriculum. I'm working with my alma mater to talk with them about like, how can we change this? Like we need to learn about people of color in school. It needs to be a part of our curriculum.
Right.
And we also need to see ourselves teaching, but that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Like look up these different organizations, whatever you're passionate about, look it up and see what organizations have been created and what work is being done and how you can support it financially.
There's sometimes weird places. I'm sorry, Jessie. There's weird, like I grew up in a really small town and there was a theater there called the Monomoy Theater. And it was funded by some really rich person that I sure didn't know. But they would bring people from a college that was like in Minnesota or something and have them study theater at this tiny thing. And I just think you could replicate that all over the country and bring people from anywhere to study theater together.
Yeah.
I mean, there's ways to do it.
A great way too, if people are looking for places to put their money, is thinking about if you live close to a college that you know has a theater program, say you'll sponsor a kid to audition or sponsor or give a scholarship, you know, like those small things are big wins to people. And it's same for high schools. If you live in a town and you know someone trying to go to theater school or auditioning for theater school, ask, hey, can I sponsor your trip to Boston Conservatory? Hey, can I sponsor? Because that saves people money, that saves people stress. And then that student can go into these auditions and do that stress-free. I think that's a great place to start too, in a small way, but a big way to help.
There's a lot that goes on your dime. There's a lot that goes on your dime when you're starting. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that go on your dime until, you know, you were saying, I mean, we were joking about the fact that you're doing it about the money, but like early on, it's your audition fees. It's your hotel that you pay for.
Your voice lessons, your dance classes, your everything. So if you see someone sponsor them, like a group of our alumni from my school, we're like, okay, should we set up a fund where kids don't have to pay for the application fee? And so then we cover an application fee for a person of color or for someone, you know, those are all different options.
Yeah. And the one thing I want to add to that about when the question was asked, what can we do? That's called out directly in Robin D'Agostino's book, White Fragility, is don't go ask your people of color friends, you know, what should we do? Go do the research. And, you know, that's why my dad said, you know, Google and Bing are out there still. You can look.
Yeah, you can search stuff. Let me Google that for you.
They're out there.
Yeah, and I've had that argument too with some of my white counterparts of just like, I'm not going to teach you racism 101. Like, go and figure out why these things are issues. And if you have a just question, and we can sit down and we can discuss it, but also don't put that guilt on me of like, it's now my responsibility to tell you all things. You know, that's not my job. And so, Google is our friend and research is our friend. But you also have people that you are close with that, you know, you can have these conversations with. And so there are certain people I have white friends that I'm like, oh yeah, I'll sit down and I'll chat with you about this. But also there's some people that I'm like, no, like, figure it out. Like, we figured it out, and racism is not our problem. It is something
we're still untangling a lot of stuff that we're experiencing on our end too, you know, so to then deal with our stuff on top of your stuff, it is a lot. Some people are fine with it. My husband is always like, please send those people my way, because how are they supposed to know what to read? And he's
and we're not all the same also. So some of us, we will talk with you, and some people won't. So figure it out.
If you feel shocked that Princess Anna is a person of color, you need to ask yourself why you're shocked. Why is that shocking? And examine some of your exactly. Right?
That's a great example, but that's a great example of like someone brings up a racist remark that you made or this or that. And you're like, oh no, well, I don't understand how that is. You know, we can have that conversation, but you also need to look within yourself and have that conversation with yourself first.
Yeah.
There's a I can't believe how many times I keep referencing comic books and superheroes, but it's because I got nothing. There's a skit out there where it's like all the superheroes are kind of gathering, and one's like, Lightning Man and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, what do you think, Black Tornado? And he's just like, why am I Black Tornado? It's because I'm black and I have tornado powers. And it's basically the trope that has existed in a gazillion things. And interestingly, there's a Black Lightning series. I think it was CW that put it on or whatever, and it's up there with Flash and all those other. It's a good series too, right? It is, I like them. And
they were terrible though. All the character names are terrible. The Irish superhero, female Irish superhero, Shamrock. Come the hell on.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
You got to understand that, early comic book days, it was, a fistful of white Jewish guys in a little room in New York. And they were basically just there for selling ads, right? So they're like, just write some more of those funny books for the kids. And like, they didn't have any oversight. And Stan Lee says all the time in Marvel, that's why he'd do stuff, but he would just do it like kind of like the Star Trek way from the 60s. He would just make a green person and we could talk about racism all we want if they're green, and, kind of covered it. So it was, they had to figure out their lessons too. I wanted to say one other thing about what Aisha said earlier about the fact that you're suddenly a diva and all that. Systemic racism exists when there's maybe 100 words that are code for, you're trying to get what you deserved.
Yeah.
100 words. Don't be uppity. Don't be, don't look for your place. There's all these words that have stacked that essentially mean stay down.
Mm-hmm. And systemic racism also rears its head when we have the conversation of when people of color are placed into these positions. Like Jessie, you were saying, someone who is a Waitress fan was like, "Oh no, but there were Black people there," and it's like, yeah, but what are they doing? Right. Are they leading the show?
Yes.
Are they getting the same opportunities as their white counterparts? It's not enough for us to just be there. And I think that's the box that diversity checks off. They're like, oh, there are people of color present. We can see them.
You should just be happy like that. Really
it's like, that's not enough. Like, that's
not fair. You should just be happy staying down. Like, that's what that feels like to me. And that could sound dramatic, but that's really what you're saying. There were quite a few, and they love Waitress. So I get that they were coming at me because of that, but I don't not love it. But let's look at it for real.
But you're exactly right, because every story we celebrate is like, I won't give up. I'm gonna not stop till I'm number one, and I strive and strive and strive. Right? That's the story.
But the minute that I feel you're a person of color saying that, they're like, listen, you need to be grateful. And you're like, okay, I'm not. But why can't? Yes, we're grateful Nicolette was our first Black Jenna, but the show had been running for over 2 years at that point. That's a problem. Yeah. All of our male leads, right? Dr. Palmater, he's this doctor and he's kind of awkward. Never played by a person of color. Always a white, pretty man, And that was the vision. He's the one that sweeps Jenna off her feet. Like,
why can't people of color be the one that sweeps someone off their feet, be the one that falls in love, be the goofy one, not always be the sassy one, or not always be the side chick? Why can't we go on these journeys? Why can't we be three-dimensional characters? Why do we have to be stereotypical? Why do we only have to fill this little box?
The wisdom giver and all those, there's all those tropes. But it doesn't end either. Idris should be the next James Bond. Whoa!
No, not in the Cats movie.
Yeah. You should be happy with Cats, Idris.
Yeah, you should be happy, Chris, that you saw it. I mean, be grateful.
Donald Glover tells this great joke back when he was a stand-up. You know how Donald's like 85 things? He was telling the joke about they were asking around about the new Spider-Man, and there's he's half Black, half Latino Spider-Man in the comics called Miles Morales, and someone was like, Donald Glover would be perfect. Donald Glover could be Spider-Man, and he was like, hey, yeah, I'll play Spider-Man. It's one of those Twitter conversations that suddenly is like news, like Variety. Donald Glover agrees to play Spider-Man. Right, you know how that goes. And then people start coming after them. And the racist, this is what the joke becomes. He goes, the racists are all on me going, you don't have to be Spider-Man. We already have Shaft. He goes, God. And he said, Shaft? He goes, Shaft is no black guy's superhero. Shaft like would like slap a whole bunch of women and stuff. He goes, I didn't get up in the morning and have my Shaft pajamas on and go down to my breakfast table and eat Shaftos. He goes, it's not the same thing. So anyway,
No,
it's
but
just
it's the same thing like with Disney princesses and stuff. They're like, well, you have Tiana, and you have Pocahontas and Moana and Mulan, and it's like, and you have Cinderella and Snow White and this 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 and this. But thank you so much for giving us, Tiana, who is a frog for half of the movie. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's like, no, great. I'm so happy we have Tiana. I'm so happy we have these different princesses of color. Why can't there be more of them? And why can't we expand the definition of what it means to be a princess? And why can't like a person of color just be a person of color? Yes, we want stories that revolve around our race and our culture and our experiences, but we also just want to be seen as humans. Like just let us embody a character that has nothing to do with our race, because you get to do that all the time. It's just like,
I remember seeing Hamilton, and one guy wouldn't see it because he was like, oh, the politics, blah, blah, blah. And he went and saw something else, and his wife was seeing Hamilton. So we ended up sitting in the same place. But I was like, how can you complain? Like, here's a show that's, for one, like everybody's person of color. And the guy's like, no, I'm not here for that. Like, he's going to go see something else because he's that dedicated to closing himself off.
As long as they're there. All right, listen. So this wrap is winding down. We have to think of one thing, which is what would you give people to put in their backpack? So the show is called The Backpack because in this crazy, chaotic world, we're all building on sand right now. There's no solid foundation. We're still kind of in free fall. We can't carry everything with us. We can only carry about a backpack worth of stuff at any given time. The kinds of examples we've had in the past are, the obvious ones: bravery, invulnerability, and those sorts of things. Somebody said, I want another backpack in my backpack so we could have double the carriage.
That's cheating. That's not allowed.
What goes in the backpack, Jessie? What goes in the backpack, Aisha?
Jessie, you want to go first?
Empathy. That's my number one. Just having empathy.
Yeah, I think listening to others. I know right now there are a lot of hard conversations, a lot of tough conversations happening, but I think we have to lead with grace and we have to listen. And if you are the person that's being told, you're doing something wrong or this, don't attack the person who's saying that. Don't go, well, I would never do that, or I do this, or sit back, take a second, listen, assess it. It might be incorrect, but like take a moment to allow them to voice their hurt and get that off, and then figure out how you cause that hurt. And if you need to, reconfigure so that you don't cause it or cause that harm to someone else, but lead with grace right now. It's tough, but we have to give grace to ourselves as we're dealing with all these different things. And we have to give grace to each other as we're, coming up with these different, we're questioning all of our values and all of our, like the way we were raised. And especially when we talk about systemic racism, it's in the DNA of our country. So we kind of have to reconfigure how we're thinking. And that's going to take a lot of grace, a lot of love, a lot of patience, but lead with grace. That was a long answer. Lead with grace.
No, that was
a great answer.
Great answer. Thank you both for joining us today. Thanks for everybody who came live and contributed. This has been an amazing conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
A little special shout out to Jason. Sherry, Jason, you made two really good points. One of them is about, 85 feet long. But thank you for being part of it. And thanks for asking. But we hit it the last part of the show. So as anybody who's been here more than once knows, there's a weird way that the show ends.